there is more news about Pete Hegseth and why, what is going on in his administration, the Department of Defense, which, don't get me wrong, when the DoD has less time to focus on bombing foreign countries, that's good in my book. That being said, if you care about, what, not leaking war plans and like national security, if you were, I don't know, the Secretary of Defense, that might just be something that you would want to look out for. You'd probably not want to do, a signal chat that is also to your wife, brother, and pretty much anyone, like maybe the hairdresser, who knows. But this is an interesting new report from Politico that shows that it's not just Hegseth. In fact, the entire DoD and the very people that Hegseth hired to work alongside him are effectively just becoming a hazy little frat house of infighting and jealousy and vying for power. And that's why we know what we know about Pete Hegseth's signal chat, which, again, kind of a good thing in general to know if the Department of Defense head is putting everybody at risk by including people who should not be included on classified information and using their private phone to do that. But that's exactly what's happening. So that is why you've been hearing Pete talk about his disgruntled former employees and, freaking out about it. It's because he set it up. It's a bunch of little Pete Hegseths that are inside now the DoD who are fighting. So let's just take you through it. Hegseth surrounded himself with advisors who turned into vicious rivals for power, whose bitter brawl has now unraveled into revenge power plays, surprising firings, accusations of leaking, and embarrassing headlines that are blowing up the Pentagon, distracting from Trump's agenda, and possibly jeopardizing Hegseth's job. Oh no! How dare we distract from the agenda of arresting people and deporting them to black sites without due process? How dare we stop the agenda of bashing down the door of Palestine protesters, students, kids, and violently arresting them and then disappearing them so that they can't attend things like the birth of their first child? I say more of this. I'm like, this is just palace intrigue. But if you want to put more spokes in the wheels and stop Trump's agenda, be my goddamn guest. Many administration views are driven by ideological or factional differences, splitting old school conservatives from MAGA headliners, the America's First activists. That does not appear to be the case here. This one is all about personality conflict, according to interviews with 9 current and former Defense Department officials, as well as others close to the feud, granted an anonymity to discuss a sensitive political issue. Hegseth's closest advisors privately jockeyed for influence, creating festering distrust and gamesmanship that has rocked the world's premier defense agency. The world's premier. Top shelf war crimes. Top shelf occupations. Top shelf. Real. The premier terrorizing force of the world. There's a lot of tension, a lot of bad blood, said a person with knowledge of the feud. There's a lot of people trying to assert dominance in an area where it's hard to do without cutting somebody else. The infighting became so ugly that Hegseth suspected the recent leaks to the media were an orchestrated attempt by his senior staff to make their rivals look bad, according to someone close to him. Efforts to cast the secretary and his department in a negative light. At the center was Joe Kasper, his departing chief of staff, who people familiar with the matter said created a toxic workplace culture and played an instrumental role in pushing out 3 top Pentagon officials. Remember, 3 of those dudes got fired already for allegedly leaking, but that's just what Kasper said. Now, I love that he's created a toxic work environment. It reminds me of like when Steven Crowder was allegedly like putting his, balls on people's faces or whatever and like walking around naked. And you're like, okay, I know that we're all about toxic masculinity, but like, can we keep that to the job and not behind the scenes? Because I'm trying to get some work done and I can't with your smelly balls in my face. Like, doesn't it remind you of like, oh, I'm sorry, are you being a snowflake right now? Are you being a little snowflake? Like, This is Pete Hegseth's DOD, okay, baby? First day, you got to butt chug a handle of Kirkland vodka. If you can't do that, then you're a weak beta, all right? How you ever going to get the terrorists? If you see how you get the terrorists is you create a signal. I don't know if you've see the thing is terrorists never heard a signal, okay? So, after you're done and you're good and drunk, you're going to want to create a signal chat on an unsecured device and probably add a bunch of honeys on it. That's what you're going to want to do. So, but there, remember, there's not just Pete Hegseth lackeys who are in the DOD. There are career officials who, 3 of them actually were pushed out. The Pentagon is full of people who actually know what they're doing. And it seems like everyone's kind of taken L's on this, all of this drama. But they have a little bit of a story to tell. The firings, they said, were an attempt to consolidate power. Kasper denied inappropriate behavior having anything to do with dismissals. On the other side were fired employees, trusted Hegseth allies. Those staffers, senior advisor, okay, so actually the people who were let go were already people that he was aligned with. But now he's calling them disgruntled former staffers. Senior advisor Dan Caldwell, Deputy Chief of Staff Darren Selnick, and Colin Carroll, the Chief of Staff and the Deputy Defense Secretary, were considered Hegseth's closest allies and maintained their innocence. We had people who had personal vendettas against us, Caldwell told Tucker Carlson in an interview Monday night. They weaponized the investigation against us. Kasper argued in an interview that he was doing what he was ordered to by Hegseth, start an investigation into recent leaks. The Pentagon denied a clash of personalities, but otherwise declined to comment. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt insisted the fired officials leaked to the media that there was a smear campaign within the Defense Department to harm Hegseth's reputation. I love that, like, anyone who starts investigating what actually happened, and this is like MAGA's go-to, right? And we're going to see it in 2 more instances in today's show, where the right is not concerned about the issue. The issue is, hey, don't text war plans to your family members and people who are on your personal phone. Issue. Then they're like, nah, the issue is whoever leaked this to the media. Nah, the issue is whoever investigated the leaks to the media. And it's all a hit job to take down the presidency. My guy, your own people are taking down your presidency. Your own DOD is taking down your presidency. You don't got to, like, make some sort of, again, like, the permutations of outrage don't have to be there. The outrage is just your defense secretary is wildly unqualified. That's all it is. Hegseth called Kasper a great American on Tuesday and affirmed his support for him. He's certainly not fired, he said on Fox and Friends. Okay, but let's learn a little bit more about our guy. Oh my God, there's Pete Hegseth surrounded by his children who are all like, oh God, is this going to be every day? God, this is the same. Why is this the same tone that daddy uses when he's lying to mom? When we know that he ate the last muffin, but he blamed it on me and I got to take the fall for him. And I said, yeah, I knew where he was. And he was just going to the store to get some stuff when he was really just having a drink at the bar. Why is he doing the same defensive voice? Oh boy. A longtime aide and friend of indicted Representative Duncan Hunter, so stand-up guy, Kasper was helping oversee his office when a series of scandals roiled the California's Republicans' office. That included allegations Hunter regularly drank heavily while serving in Congress. Investigations also inquired about relations he had with a young woman working in his office. He was eventually sentenced to 11 months in prison for misusing taxpayer funds and was pardoned by Trump in 2020. Look, stand-up people, just an alpha male looking out for another alpha male. So that is this guy Kasper's backstory. He would later work at the Department of Homeland Security, the Navy, and the Air Force, Jesus Christ, in the first Trump administration as a lobbyist. Critics say he quickly ran into trouble with his new job at the Pentagon. He was often late to meetings, developed a reputation for dropping the ball on critical tasks with little follow-up, according to 3 people who witnessed his behavior. Another person with his management said he, quote, lacked the focus and organizational skills needed to get things done. While some who say he was fun and charming, 3 of the people said he frequently berated officials in meetings and repeatedly referred to military officials by a lower rank. God. Like, I don't know ranks, but it's very funny to like be in the DOD and be like, "Hey, sergeant. Hey, sergeant. You a sergeant? Anyway, I watch the movies. I've seen Full Metal Jacket, so I'm just going to scream at you as loud as I can. Maggot!" Like, can you just like that's the vibe I'm getting. Is him being like, I don't know, lieutenant sergeant guy, a soldier, a soldier. I'm just gonna call everybody soldier. This guy goes to the like a Mexican restaurant, calls everybody Pedro. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the vibe he's giving off. At times, Kasper's detractors say his leadership seems almost juvenile. No. He once graphically described his bowel movements to colleagues in one high-level meeting, according to 2 people who were in the meetings. During that meeting, he turned and goes, quote, "Can I just tell everyone around this table that I took an enormous shit right before coming here," according to 2 people who were present, not president. I wish they were president. People were like, "What? Like, this is a business meeting," the official said. Well, I love this. People were like, "What? Dude, that's for like after work, dog. Like, what? This is like we're at the Department of Defense. I mean, I can't believe I'm here either. You know what I mean? Because like I'm not qualified and have a couple of rape allegations hanging over me as well. But like, I know what a business meeting is. I'm wearing a suit and we are talking about war. So, oh my God. I just like the terrifying thing about these people is that the only way to truly stop with the criticisms and the investigations and pointing out the obvious flaws of the people in the DOD, what is it? Yeah, it's war. It's basically like, look over there. We're killing a bunch of brown people. Let's do that. Hey, march to war. Ba 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 ba. Like you're a grand old flag. I don't know, whatever song you want to sing. Like, it's just making more war. Like, can you imagine? Like, first of all, number one, if we do attack Iran, Iran absolutely stands a massive chance with these idiots in charge. So, like, good on them. But also, there are going to be no rules. I mean, I think what's interesting about the genocide playing out in Gaza is it creates and this is just an aside, obviously, there's a certain, crass, disgusting lawlessness to war, if you can even call it that the United States is like so itching to do their version of. Like, oh, what? We can just shoot ducks in a barrel. We can just murder people and call them terrorists and that's fine. Let's do one of those. So they will all patch this over once there is a war on. Kasper said the story was taken out of context. Oh yeah, no, when I said enormous I was talking about my Uber driver who, I took an enormous so, and he was being a piece of so me taking my Uber to work, I took an enormous it was it was out of context, okay? And also out of context cuz I never in the bathroom, okay? I in a filing cabinet like a grown man. Actually, what I do is I in a filing cabinet of like the newcomers, so they find it and they're like, "Hey, Kasper, you're being Kaspered." You know what I call in my toilet that disappears? You know the ones you just dunk them and then they just disappear, like they just go whoop. I call that a Casper the Friendly Ghost. That's what it is. That's that kind of, that's a dump that the Casper the Friendly Ghost. Bye-bye. He said he joked that the team was in major con, a play on words suggesting they were in trouble. Oh my God. Selnick was brought in as a deputy chief of staff in March to deal with perceived problems in Kasper's leadership, according to 3 people familiar with the matter. So they had to do so again, Pete Hegseth is someone who needs a chaperone. We know that. Now they have a chaperone to chaperone the person who needs a chaperone's guy that he hired. So it's like it's like a shadow. It's like, you're shadowing somebody. These people thought Selnick, a MAGA loyalist who worked with Hegseth for years ago when he ran a nonprofit group, Concerned Veterans for America, and tanked it into the ground. You guys need to read, if you haven't already, the Jane Mayer piece about how much Hegseth destroyed two veterans organizations' budgets. They thought he could run for office in case could run the front office in case things went sideways. Hegseth also began to lean more heavily on Caldwell, who worked with him at a nonprofit and had a reputation as a no-nonsense type A executor. The leadership change created tensions between Kasper and the others. According to 3 people in the Pentagon around that time, Kasper did not like those guys that had the secretary's ear, said a person familiar with the dynamic. He did not like that they had a walk-in hanging out privileges in the office. Hey, I thought we were going to just, do a little beanbagging, a little beanbagging. I forgot what it's called. A little hacky sack, a little office hacky sack. I thought that was going to be me. Now I don't have walk-in privilege. Oh, I got to set up a meeting. Come on. We're boys. You're my boy. You're my boy. Kasper denied that he had any issues with the other senior advisors. Tensions between the group only further spiked last month amid a series of leaks that set everyone at the Pentagon, but especially Hegseth, on edge. Kasper's critic says he used the chaos to settle scores with other Hegseth advisors, pushing for an investigation into the leaks and pointing the finger at his colleagues. When Caldwell and Selnick took on many of his responsibilities at Hegseth's direction, a rift deepened between Joe and them, said one of the people. After several weeks, Joe began trying to move them out, apparently by bad-mouthing them to the secretary. Hegseth started to feel increasingly isolated and paranoid, according to 2 people close to him. Yeah. Hey, somebody needs a drink. Somebody needs a drink. You know this guy Kasper's like, you need a drink? You want a little sippy sip? We're gonna hit up happy hour? It's 5 o'clock somewhere. It's 10 in the morning. No, this sounds like the worst wingman possible. Hegseth started to feel increasingly isolated and paranoid. Last week, it all caught up to him. He fired some of the most senior staff, believing they were leaking. Kasper emerged from the battle wounded. Politico reported Friday that he was stepping down from his top post for a new role. Ah, yes. He must live on. He must fail up. So this is what's going on. But again, this is all the drama. And so it's like, if the White House and Caroline Leavitt are like, this is just disgruntled employees and these are leakers and they're terrible and blah. Remember before, in the first Trump administration, it wasn't about like, hey, Donald is just playing memories on loop and crying, and somehow secretly speaks Russian. Like all the actual things that were happening in the first administration. Obviously, there were actual things other than that. It was, who's talking about that? How dare you? How dare you talk to the press about that? But this is the thing. When you create a frat house that is in charge of the world's largest military and the country's largest budget, this is what's going to happen. But it does not change the fact that your dumbass created a signal chat, put your brother, put your personal lawyer, put your wife on the signal chat on your personal phone. So can we get to that investigation? When's that going to happen? When's that happening? What's going on, Frantifa? If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that button. And also, you can become a patron and support the show every single week. Get access to bonus episodes and exclusive merchandise. Patreon.com/bitchuation room. Do